are here to talk about Mr. Rob Reiner. Now, I'm old enough. I'm 42 years old. I was born in 1983, and even then it was in syndication. But I'm old enough to remember old Meathead from All in the Family. That's where I remember Rob Reiner from. That's where my memory is, the long-haired hippie guy from All in the Family with Archie. I told my wife that. I said, you remember Archie from All in the Family? The long-haired son? The blonde-headed sister? And then I hit her with the wife who used to have that voice, the gravelly voice. Those were the days. And she went, oh, okay, yeah. It's an iconic sound that everyone remembers if you're either from that era or close to it, like I was. I was close to that era. I was born in the early 80s. So I remember that show and I remember him more than anything else from that show, with the exception of maybe Archie himself. I remember him. But for those of you who don't remember All in the Family, and I'm sure most of you who are watching this don't, he also went from actor to director. Actually became a director for one of some of the biggest films in cinematic history, believe it or not. I have a list in front of me of some freaking knockdown, drag out films that he's directed. These are iconic films. This is Spinal Tap, 1984, Stand By Me in 1986, masterpiece, The Princess Bride in 1987. If you're a wrestling fan, The Princess Bride is in your catalog. I'm just saying. When Harry Met Sally, 1989. Who will ever forget the orgasm scene, huh? Misery, 1990. One of my all-time favorite movies is Misery. It really is. Kathy Bates. A Few Good Men in 1992. So he's got some hits here. He's got a resume. This guy's known throughout the industry here. However, his legacy is going to be marred a little bit by this ending. He was found, him and his wife, who I want to make sure I get the name right, Michelle Singer Rayner, who they were found on Sunday. They were found dead in their home. That was the original reporting, that they were found dead in their home, and found dead turned into found murdered. Then it turned into a suspicious, or we're looking for a suspect situation. Then they arrested Nick Reiner, who is their son, and now we're learning that he is being charged with the murder of his parents. And apparently it all stemmed from a conversation or an argument, disagreement, however you want to decipher it, that was taking place at Conan O'Brien's party. It was a party that Conan O'Brien was throwing, and there was a heated debate. The debate continued on into the evening, into the home, and it turned into the worst possible scenario for that situation. So Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Rayner, I keep saying the two names differently. I don't know why. Rob Reiner, Michelle Singer Reiner. I don't know why I keep saying it different for her. It's not French. I don't know why I'm doing that. But yeah, they were found dead in their home on Sunday, and now it is Nick who is being taken in by Southern California, Los Angeles Deputy Police Chief Alan Hamilton told reporters that he is being held without bail until an arraignment can be had. They're looking to give him life. If the court finds him guilty, he could be spending the rest of his life in prison. Not much is known about Nick Reiner. They said that he has a history of battling addiction, which reportedly began when he was a teenager in 2016. And he's been dealing with it. He's been in and out of rehab pretty much since then. And say what you want about people in recovery, it does. They put that in the news article to give you an indication of what that history is like. But as someone who was raised in that atmosphere, just because you have an addiction issue does not necessarily mean that you're guaranteed to be killing anyone anytime soon. So I don't know why they put that in there, other than the fact that they're trying to make sense of the whole situation, because what person would absolutely go out of their way to try to murder their own parents? So now we transition from Rob Reiner to Donald Trump. Now, we don't do a lot of politics here. As a matter of fact, we try to do absolutely none of it if I could have it. I don't do politics on here because it's a waste of everybody's goddamn time, including mine. I don't give a shit what this guy does or has to say. But it connects to something that I do care about, and it connects to someone that I actually care about. so I'm going to bring it up. After the death of Rob Reiner, here is a tweet that was presented by Donald Trump. He tweeted this, or his people, however you want to characterize his tweets. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling, but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away. Together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. I don't think anybody refers to it as that, but that's what he said. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. I don't think I've ever I didn't write this. I don't think I've ever read a paragraph that long when a simple fuck you, you deserved it would have sufficed. That would have been plenty, I think, which is basically what he wrote in that entire paragraph. He took an opportunity to use someone's death to promote whatever it is that he's got going on with the administration. And so this has come across a lot of people as very distasteful, but it's Trump. When is he not doing something that's distasteful? So after Trump made his comments, it led a former WWE superstar and a current WWE Hall of Famer to make his remarks. So Mick Foley tweeted out, parting ways with WWE. Actually, now that I'm looking at, is that Twitter? I think that's more like Facebook. While I have been concerned about WWE's close relationship with Donald Trump for several months, especially in light of his administration's ongoing cruel and inhuman treatment of immigrants and pretty much anyone who looks like an immigrant, reading the president's incredibly cruel comments in the wake of Rob Reiner's death is the final straw for me. I no longer wish to represent a company that coddles a man so seemingly void of compassion as he marches our country towards autocracy, something like that. Autocracy? Autocracy? Last night, I informed at WWE's Talent Relations that I would not be making any appearances for the company as long as this man remains in office. Additionally, I will not be signing a new Legends deal when my current one expires in June. I love WWE, will always treasure my time with them, and I am deeply appreciative of all the opportunities they afforded me. But in the words of Popeye the Sailor, I stands all I could stands, and I can't read the bottom, but I think is I can't stands no more. And let me take this ticker off. Oh, look at that. Spoiler. That's what it was. So let's remove that. So why are we bringing this up? Oh, AJ, I thought you don't do politics. Well, I'm not doing politics. This conversation has nothing to do with politics. It's got everything to do with morals and ethics. And Mick Foley is exercising his right to remain as moral or good moral, have good morals and good standards, even in his later years. For everyone who's giving him flack for his stance, that's his stance. Now, someone brought it to my attention, and it's a very good point, that I also didn't have a problem, just like I don't have a problem with Mick Foley making this decision. I didn't have a problem with the comedians who went to Saudi Arabia, which people were like, well, why would you be in support of that? That's messed up. They shouldn't be going to Saudi Arabia and giving them their time and their effort, and they're selling out for money and all this other stuff. Well, money's great, yeah, not for nothing, but I think there's a very specific difference between the two, and I bring up the Saudi Arabia thing in because of this comparison. The comedians going to Saudi Arabia, if you want to say anything about their government, I think that's fair game. You can criticize them all that you want, but not everybody in Saudi Arabia supports the Saudi Arabian government. Not everybody there supports the habits or supports their means of the control or whatever it is that they're doing at that time. There are some innocent people there. And if they're going to get paid, I'm referring to the comedians out the wazoo to perform for people just like that. And people are going to say, well, they're not all going to be there, AJ. There's going to be the government that does these things to people. They'll be there too. And there are people who live there that support them. And that's fine. That's fine. They'll probably be there. But at least you can make the argument it's scattered. There's going to be people there who are completely innocent of any wrongdoing, and then there's people who aren't. You got to take the good with the bad in that situation. Is it worth the money? I guess it depends on your morals and standards. Mick Foley isn't taking a stance against a country of people, isn't taking a stance against an autocracy. I'm going to figure out what that word is. It's a stand on one individual, a one individual where we have receipts. Mick's not challenging this individual. If anything, he's leaving this individual completely out of the equation with the small factor of WWE's relationship. Now, WWE has always had relationships with presidents in the past. Clinton, Obama, Bush, they have always had relationships with people in the White House, people within government for years and years and years and years. And of course, TKO is going to be no different. Every high-level business that's worth anything is going to have some connections to the government, some connections especially to the White House. But what makes this particular situation so different is, for whatever reason, this particular president has brought out such an array of emotions from the American people that it just seems like there's this really hard line in the sand. And, you know, back in the day, I used to hear debates and arguments all the time about Bush, about Clinton, about Obama, just policies and their morals and their standards, and questioning them as presidents and questioning them as people. And they absolutely used to, I never heard of a president ever that 100% had the approval rating of every single individual in the country. It's never happened. There's always been people that have been split on presidencies, but this particular one seems to be a very hard line. And there doesn't seem to be any two sides about it. You're either on a side, his side, or you're on the other side. And it seems to be pretty radicalized amongst people, which is another reason I said before, we don't do politics on the show, because I don't give a fuck about either side, to be honest with you. One day I'm on one side, one day I'm on the other. Who fucking knows? Who knows? It depends on the situation. It depends on the situational stuff, right? So Mick Foley has made his choice. I don't want to be anywhere near the Trump administration. I don't want to be in any sort of association, even though he's not directly associated. He doesn't want to represent a company as an ambassador, which is what those contracts are. It's what WWE Legend contracts are. When they make appearances, they're making appearances as former WWE superstars under the WWE umbrella. And he doesn't want to stand under the umbrella of someone that's cascading protection over an individual who is undeserving of it, or at least that's his opinion, that Donald Trump is unfit to be in the position that he's in. The fact that a company like WWE partakes in engaging in a relationship with that individual only really shows that the WWE is, I wouldn't say complicit, but they're right there. They have no problem. It's not a deal breaker for them, the behavior that happens at with the presidency. You know, if ICE agents came to a WWE event, I doubt very seriously that they would intervene at all. They would just be par for the course. So Mick Foley has made a decision where he's just not going to represent a company anymore that partakes in that sort of thing. Jim Cornette has stepped up and commented also on Mick Foley's want to, you know, not be associated with a company that is involved with Donald Trump at all whatsoever. And I noticed in the tweet, if we were to pull that tweet back up, it states that very specifically he doesn't want to represent a company that represents him and refuses to return, or at the very least, until Trump's no longer in office, which after this term, he's not going to be able to go back into office ever again anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So Mick's at least leaving the door open for that. I don't know if WWE and TKO are taking this as a slight, or if they're taking this as an understanding entity and simply says, okay, you know, if when he leaves, if we want to revisit, we'll revisit. And then there are those that are criticizing Mick because technically speaking, he is under contract still until June. And I said, well, you're under contract, so you got to do what you got to do. And I keep telling you people, that is not how contracts work. That is not how contracts work at all. You don't own a human being when you have a contract. I've had this conversation on this show a bajillion times. Are there legal ramifications? Sure. If WWE really wanted to push the issue, they could sever ties with Mick Foley financially. They could say, well, if he's made the decision not to work, then we're going to execute our right to terminate the contract. We don't owe him any more money, or we don't have him tied up. There's also the legal ramification of suing an individual and forcing them to pay some of that money back for not fulfilling their end of the contract. But there's no gun to a human being's head. You can't put a shotgun to the back and Mick's head and do this goddamn appearance and we get our cut. That's not, can't make anybody do anything. That's not how contracts work. Contracts are an agreement between two individuals that this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do. Contracts get breached every day. Every day. If WWE had found a way to breach this contract and get him out of contract, there wouldn't have been any clamor at all. But because it's Mick doing it, because it's the subordinate doing it, because it's the employee doing it, it drives people nuts. And which is ironic because it drives people who are employees nuts. What the fuck do you care about the situation at all? But it is what it is. Here at Orsini's Uncensored Mind, we support Mick Foley 100%. If that's the decision you're going to make, and that's your standard, and that's your morals are being enacted here, 10 toes down, I'm with you. It takes balls to do that, to be honest with you. It takes balls to do that. There's a lot of people that say all the time that not all money is good money. Well, here's another firm, fine example of exactly that. Not all money is good money. And Mick Foley has decided that WWE money at this point in time is not good money. I'm sure the door will be opened down the line if there are other opportunities to be explored. Just because he's no longer under contract to WWE doesn't mean he's not still a WWE legend and a WWE Hall of Famer. And it doesn't mean that he still can't be, acknowledged as one. It doesn't mean that his accomplishments and everything he's given to the industry, which is a hell of a lot more than a lot of people that are criticizing him right now, is going to be ignored or swept under the rug. He's still Mick Foley. It's like when the Dudley Boys went to TNA and became Team 3D. On paper, they're Team 3D, but those are the Dudley Boys. It doesn't go away just because a document says that it must. That's not how life works. That's not how this whole thing works at all. So contracts be damned. This is the situation that they're in. And Mick Foley has made a decision. So kudos to him. Much respect to Mick and his decision-making process. And he's standing firm on it. To take you back to that Saudi Arabia conversation, when I said I didn't have a problem with comedians going to Saudi Arabia, I also didn't have much of a problem with the comedians who chose not to go. I had a problem with them ripping the other comedians because what the fuck do you care? But the Mark Marons, the Shane Gillises, who decided, you know what, that's money I really don't need, and that's not really something I want on my resume, that I did something like that. All the support in the world. I just didn't like shitting on the other comedians. You made your decision, they made theirs. It's the same situation here. There's people in the industry that are supporting Mick Foley, and then those in the industry that are tearing him down. Get over yourself, that type of deal. We don't need to rip anybody. They made their decision. Same as you. You made your decision to stand on the side of the line that you did. They made their decision to stand on the side of the line that they did. And that's why I don't get into this shit, because you're never right and you're never wrong. You're just floating along. That's all that it really is. It's all that it ever really is with people, especially when it comes to politics. That's why you can't talk. People who are heavy into politics, you can't tell them shit. There's a reason and there's a root cause and there's a problem with everything. Everything. Always. So, not even a whole deal. So, that's the situation with Mick. That's the situation with Rob Reiner. That's the situation with Donald Trumpo.